that, we will get started. So today we have IMEROPEX, and to give you the presentation, I would like to introduce you to Jim Deere, the president of IMEROPEX. Jim, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Skylar. My name's Jim Deere. I'm the president of IMEROPEX, and my co-founder and data science lead, Izzy Kohler, will be joining midstream, but I'll start the ball rolling and kicking things off. A little bit about IMEROPEX. IMEROPEX is a platform for recreating crisis scenarios in an alternate virtual reality to examine why they happen, to find out how you can do what you can do to prevent their occurrence in the real world or limit their effects. We call this crisis premortems. Just a few words on my history. I ran a program called SIMEX, S-I-M-E-X, for DoD and DHS for 20 years at a federally funded research and development center, doing something similar to what I'm planning to do now, but recreating crisis events using simulation technology with real operators in the loop. And the origin story for the company is that in February 2018, I was doing a big simulation experiment for DoD and DHS, and the shooting in Parkland happened. And I told my clients, I think we can examine this systematically through a SIMEX with human beings involved and find out why these things happen and figure out how to prevent them. Well, they said, that's not our problem, Jim. It's an important problem, but it's not ours. So I took a detailed proposal and point paper to a senior official in the Department of Education. And this is as the Federal Commission on School Safety is going on under Trump, as you may recall. And he said, Jim, that's very interesting. Your proposal is very interesting, but this is a state and local problem. This is not our problem. However, we wonder how effective this experiment going to be. Are you using gaming computers? Is that what you're using? I said, yeah, well, yes. And then I walked out of there feeling like a complete idiot. How can you represent something realistically and as emotionally and physiologically engaging as a school shooting using gaming computers? So I pivoted my team and I told them we're going to do something in VR. I got the IT department where I worked at the time to purchase $100K worth of VR equipment. And then we prepared the team to do a simulation experiment on school safety with VR technology and make it realistic. And around the anniversary of Parkland, DHS came back to me and said they did want to do it. I got $1 million. I did a SIMEX in school safety in VR. I did a few more experiments in VR for DHS, one on law enforcement use of force and another on countering domestic disturbances. And I saw there was a lot of potential in using VR technology with data science to figure out how you can mitigate various crisis events for emergency managers. So I moved on from the company where I worked, where I was running the business unit. And I decided to turn the business unit into a startup. And that is what IMEROPEX is, a platform for recreating crisis events in virtual reality to examine why they happen, to limit their occurrence in the real world. How can you anticipate or mitigate a crisis event like a school shooting? How can you understand what will happen so you can come up with operational and technical solutions to prevent them from happening in the real world prior to their actual occurrence? That's a very tough situation. Now, the challenge is every crisis manager worries about these big problems, public and private crisis managers, military and civilian. How do you prepare for these events before they happen? How do you find a solution pre-crisis? There are a variety of approaches crisis managers use. One are data simulations, Monte Carlo simulations, agent-based simulations, whatever you want to call it, where you run scenarios, hundreds of thousands of scenarios over and over again to determine what factors make a difference. The good thing about these Monte Carlo simulations is that there is controls, metrics, and you get good statistics. The missing component are human interaction. No human beings are involved in that. It's a huge chasm as far as I'm concerned. The other way of looking at these crisis problems is through tabletop exercises, getting everybody in a room to talk about things. What if scenarios? Well, these are very subjective. There are no controls and metrics, and it's pretty much a consensus of opinion coming out of that, even though they do develop good concepts on occasion. And then you have the field events, which are in which you do things out in the field for real. But the problem with this is hard to control and measure things in a field event without it getting very expensive very quickly. So what can you find that will have the controls and measures of a Monte Carlo simulation, the concept development of a tabletop exercise, and the realism of a field event all rolled into one? And that's what IMEROPEX is. IMEROPEX is a platform, as I said, for recreating crisis events. There are two components of the business that would make this a reality. One is the scenario development service, where you create the scenarios with data science behind it to find out why things happen, with real human beings involved. And the other is technology adding realism to the environment to increase the reality of human participation. And that is the patent pending full dive virtual reality unit that fully immerses the operators in the environment. Now, the full dive virtual reality unit integrates the feeling of touch with haptic gloves, audio and visual sensation with the headsets, a full bodysuit for pain and pressure throughout your body to add realism, and then a treadmill so you can move around realistically in the environment. This is all Ready Player One, if anyone's seen that movie. But it's all about adding realism. As far as markets, there are a variety of markets out there that IMEROPEX would shape and intersect. One is the modeling and simulation market, very large global market, as well as the crisis management market. And then there's a global market for virtual reality technology. But a unique niche here is also the global market for crisis management insurance. That's an important market that I think we could delve into with IMEROPEX. The competitive landscape, multiple vendors offer, large and small, offer VR components, headsets, monitors, treadmills, suits, game engines, what have you. But no one vendor right now is offering an integrated, fully immersive solution like the full dive virtual reality unit. The other thing that's unique about IMEROPEX, we're offering the use of VR scenarios and technology for crisis prediction and mitigation, not for training. Training is done by a lot of different organizations, including small and large companies, companies like Meta, companies like even Walmart does VR training for its staff. This is different, using VR scenarios for crisis prediction and mitigation, and then the fully immersive VR technology that provides realism to the event called the full dive virtual reality unit. Traction, just to be clear, we're pre-revenue, pre-seed startup. However, there's some interesting components that give us a great deal of traction today. We did develop an MVP, a full dive virtual reality unit demonstration with a real EMT and a real firefighter immersed in a crisis management scenario. And that was done about a year and a half ago at Houston Community College. You can see the video of that event if you go to my website. What was unique about that is we were worried about all the operators wearing all this equipment being distracted from the mission, which was to save someone trapped in a plant fire. Just the opposite happened. They were so immersed in the environment, they forgot they were wearing the equipment, which is an important insight to be gained from that particular event. We do have real commitments, 3 to 4 investors. I just got back from Switzerland or from Barcelona to meet with a Swiss investor. He has a letter of intent to commit to a large amount of funding for our seed round. And my plans are to meet with his client in Geneva in the next week or so to potentially close the deal. We also have investment of about $200K of cloud credits and engineering support for Microsoft, since I'm part of the Microsoft Startup Hub. We do have a term sheet, an SOW with Kiwi Tech for technical support. They have built a clickable prototype, which we could demonstrate to interested parties at some time. And the full dive virtual reality unit itself is patent pending. Last but not least, we have commitments from school districts and the Texas School District Police Chiefs Association, as well as the University of Texas, to host a pilot event on school safety in Texas. Now, you might ask, why Texas? Well, Texas has a burgeoning market in school safety right now due to what happened in Uvalde a couple of years ago. That market is about $2 billion worth and includes school districts, education service centers, the Texas Education Agency, as well as the University of Texas. So there are a variety of organizations that are interested in getting behind this. And the pilot, as I'll go into a little later, will both shape and market the business. There's our team. A little about our team since we have time. I mentioned I ran the CEMEX program for DoD and DHS for 20 years. Dean Sawicki is my co-founder and CTO. He was also my tech lead when I ran the CEMEX program for about 4 years. Data scientist and co-lead is Izzy Kohler. She has a PhD in working on another, and she has a degree in applied mathematics. And she'll be learning the data science, developing equations to figure out what in fact causes things to happen in the course of the scenarios. Chad Modad is the hardware engineer out of Houston, and he has his fingers into VR hardware around the world. He'll be vetting hardware solutions for us. I have a advocacy group called Mo Casey that's working for me to develop relationships with both the state of Texas, the legislature, school districts, and the University of Texas. IXCI with Kiwi Tech is coordinating Kiwi Tech's participation in IMEROPEX and its development of the prototype. I have a psychiatrist on my team, Tim Lacey, who worked in virtual Afghanistan and virtual Iraq. He treated soldiers for PTSD using VR technology. He's going to be helping us build our VR scenarios. And finally, my lead developer from Shiny Box is Todd Daniel. And he's going to be developing the VR environment for our scenario business. My advisors all have unique contributions to make. First of all, I mentioned the insurance industry. We're talking to insurance organizations in Texas right now, including the Texas Association of School Board Risk Fund that actually provides insurance for school districts around the state to provide active shooter insurance for some of the schools. And IMEROPEX would provide that service to determine basically what premiums should be, and also a service to provide to clients should they pay the premiums. And Jamie Miller, a former AIG executive, will be helping in this regard. I'm also working on the DoD angle, and Dr. Rich Stats is also a retired Major General, will be helping me make entree into the DoD organizations. Bob Fine is the executive director of the Virtual Reality Healthcare Association. So he's introducing me to the healthcare environment and also the various VR entrepreneurs in that environment. And finally, Weston Baker is an architect, serial entrepreneur. He was my mentor when I went through the New Chip Accelerator, and he's providing me ongoing advice on entrepreneurship. Here's my ask. I'm asking for 1.5 million, basically to plan and execute the pilot. The money would be used to build and integrate the full virtual reality units, develop the VR infrastructure for the pilot, plan and execute the one pilot event we discussed in coordination with the University of Texas and various school districts in the state. And also it would market in the business. So as we're developing and pressure testing the technology, we'll also be marketing it to clients. And I'm working with the School District Police Chiefs Association to do pre-sales through a buyer's list, as well as developing relationships with UT to actually be our first client once the pilot is done. That's financial forecast. And what you see here is burgeoning revenue over the next 4 to 5 years. Most of the revenue will be coming from small, medium, and large contracts for VR scenarios. We set up the environment for the clients and operate and maintain it year to year. In addition to that, we'll be selling and marketing the full virtual reality units that provide realism to the scenarios we just discussed. So our clientele could be public and private security organizations that would both be buying the full virtual reality units as well as buying the service. So VR technology today is used for training and diversion. We're talking about using it for something different, for what we call crisis premortems. Premortems to understand why things happen before they happen in the real world. So thank you for your attendance and interest. I'm the founder and CEO. Izzy Kohler is my co-founder in Data Science Lane. Dean Sawicki is the co-founder and CTO. And we're all working together to make a great team and a great product. Well, that concludes my presentation. Let me know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, we are going to start out with some questions. Um, and for anyone who joined late, if you have any more questions, please feel free to private message them to me or write them in the chat for this Q&A portion. Um, the first question is, do you have commitments from any other investors?
I have a I have a letter of intent to invest $1.5 million from an investor in Switzerland. And I have soft circled verbal commitments from two others, but the Swiss investor is the clearest opportunity right now.
Okay. Next question is, please describe the value added service.
Well, the value added service is as follows. Think about what's going on right now. I'm using school safety as kind of a beachhead. We're going to start with school safety in Texas to get at a very important problem, but it can span to other problems in other states and other themes. The value added. What goes on, for example, in Texas right now, in the aftermath of the shooting at Uvalde, is they're doing audits. They go out and do audits of schools to determine if they're meeting the school safety requirements. The problem is, what are they auditing against? They don't necessarily know what's going to make a difference, except what various vendors are telling them, or what they look at in postmortems, which may or may not be good data. So what we're saying is you don't necessarily know what will mitigate the crisis, pre-crisis, without going into a postmortem, which is a bad way to do business. In our view, finding out what causes things to happen before they happen and what can mitigate their effects is the way to go. Perfect example, University of Texas medical branch chief of police, Ken Adcox, who will be participating in our pilot, suggested one thing we could look at potentially was new technologies they're proposing to ensure the safety of the classrooms and students in their schools in Galveston. And they're looking at things like shot detection systems that automatically generate 911 calls, or giving police officers ballistic shields to counter assault rifle threats, and so on. Both are very expensive solutions, and they're not sure it'll make a difference. So we could actually run these scenarios with human beings in the loop to find out if they in fact do, and to use that information to make decisions on what to acquire. Another example are procedures. Once again, going back to Texas. In the aftermath of Uvalde, one of the all law enforcement officers complained that when they went inside the school and tried to find out where the students were, and they were screaming in the hallways, "Where are you? Where are you?" No one responded. Well, it turned out that was their training. Their lockdown drill training was never respond to anybody ever. What if you pre-examine those kinds of things before they happen? You may have affected new procedures and or new technologies to mitigate the threat.
Okay, great. Our next question is, what about white label solutions?
Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yes. I will have the person who asked that maybe explain a little bit more in the chat, or you can unmute and ask. Because that was the
Yeah, basically, you have a technology here, and if you were able to sell this to an existing person that has some kind of interface going to the public, if you had an API, it might be interested on the way it's dispersed, using other people's kind of as an on-ramp to expand your technology. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that if I understand your question, yeah, collaborating with others to market the technology in a different way through different avenues. I talked to a consultant with Allegiant, which it's a $1 billion company that specializes in security and safety. I met them at a conference I attended, and their interest in me is, hey, we're selling products, but maybe your service could help us determine our product line effectiveness. Also, they said possibly they could use me as a service as a business unit, IMEROPEX, to as a separate offering to clients. So we could be part of a private concern that is trying to determine what their product line should look like for security, physical security procedures and technologies, and or providing a service that they don't currently provide.
Right, and that would all lead to an API. So you guys working on an API?
We're beginning to work on it, but once again, we're just starting. By that I mean we've been developing the concept, but the APIs are under development. That's where Shiny Box is coming in, our lead developer.
Got it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next question is, have you and your team self-funded to date?
I have put over $500,000 of my own money in the company.
Okay. Next question, with the increase in school shootings, money and attention is being dedicated to school safety. How does this product cut through the noise of all the other vendors also fighting same funding? Ballistic windows, panic buttons, metal detectors, gunshot detection, camera analytics, active shooter kits, etc.
Very good question. I attended the Texas School District Police Chiefs Association conference in Dallas a couple of weeks ago. And there were 100 booths there. I was one of the booths. All the other booths were advocating technical or new technical solutions for either school safety or for training. There was a laser gun program that was being used to train operators to deal with school shooters. There were ballistic shield manufacturers. There was a company offering foldable AR-15s to provide to school resource officers, or new door locks being advocated. A lot of different technical solutions. There was a VR company offering VR training for active shooters. Once again, what's different about us is that IMEROPEX would be a technology and an approach for validating vendor solution to determine if they in fact have an impact. That this unique door lock capability, is that going to have an impact on school safety? Running scenarios that are realistic to determine if they reduce injuries and casualties? Or is this new ballistic shield going to make a difference? So we would be a way of vetting vendors to help a client like the Texas Education Agency or the Texas School Safety Center make decisions on what to buy. Or it could be individual school districts. So we provide an avenue for a particular organization to vet vendors to see if they in fact make an impact.
Okay, great. And it looks like Izzy joined us as well. I will continue to Q&A. The next question is, once you develop the solution and service, will you allow companies to private label your solution? In essence, do an OEM deal with, say, any company, Lockheed Martin, Knightscope, Northrop Grumman, and other security manufacturers?
Yeah, the way I envision this working, once we get it going, is there could be a particular company, small or large, that would say, I want to basically take over what you're doing and make you a business unit within my larger company that would be used to vet the products we're currently developing for security and provide a service to other clients that we work with to vet their solutions.
Okay. Next question is, what will be your runway after the 1.5 million investment?
The runway, I've got a detailed briefing and coordination briefing on the pilot event, and that 1.5 million would pay for, and I've got the budget down to the dollar what the 1.5 million would pay for, but it would pay for the planning, execution, analysis, and marketing of the pilot event, through which we pressure tested capability into a product that is marketable and usable by multiple clients. That whole process, beginning to end, would be 6 months. So the runway for that 1.5 million is 6 months.
Okay. We have a question asking if Izzy could talk about her new role as co-leader.
Sure, absolutely. So Sorry, I'm a little bit late. But so as co-founder, I'm the data science lead. So basically what I'm doing is I'm doing the experimental design, the analysis plan, and looking at all of the different factors that may be involved, compiling everything into reports, doing IRB reviews. So anything that goes into experimental design or analysis is what my role is. I come from a long background of data science, math, and doing different research type experiments. So a lot of interesting background to kind of pull into it. But I think the interesting thing about the analysis with this one, and one of the things that I'm most passionate about, is it's a different approach. It's a very different approach from what you would normally find from like a traditional sort of multilinear analysis or different type of statistical analysis. We've really put a lot of thought into the experimental design and what this brings to the table, because what it brings to the table is the element of repetition, right? So we can do a lot of different experiments and we can compile a lot of data. So we can make decisions using big data, which is something that we've never been able to do before, just using traditional methods. So our approach to this is going to be very proprietary, and there was a lot of thought put into putting together some really unique equations, and some really interesting ways of looking at it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Izzy. Next question we have is, what is your IP?
Okay, there are, I guess, three components to the IP. Of course, I own the domain IMEROPEX.net, for what it's worth. Also, the IMEROPEX itself is trademarked in the UK, the EU, and the United States. That'll be very important as we go on to Europe if our Swiss investor gets engaged. The other most important IP is a full diverse reality unit that is patent pending. I have a utility patent pending. I should hear from the patent office within a month on its approval. But those are the three IP components of the business.
Okay, great. Next question, if you get the 1.5 million from your Swiss investor and it would last for only 6 months, why are you not raising more money?
Well, I would be open to raising more money. The more money I would go into doing more than one pilot event. And one pilot event is on school safety, but I'd like to do another pilot event on things like law enforcement use of force for the city of Philadelphia. I talked to various players in that city about doing a pilot event there. I've also talked to NIST about taking a look at the wildfire problem and recreating a wildfire like the Camp Fire that happened in California, the Maui fire that happened a year or so ago. Recreating that with real human beings involved to determine how you can mitigate the effect of a wildfire. That's a problem that's ongoing, getting worse, will not go away. And I think the clients for that would be massive, state, local agencies, governments, and so on.
I think the fascinating things is that we've been approached by a lot of different people from a lot of different industries for different ideas too, including the insurance industry. Anything where there's some kind of a crisis where people have a hard time coming up with a preparation plan for it. And so there's people who are coming to us actually, hey, have you considered X, Y, and Z? So the more money we raise, the more of these pilots and the more of these experiments we can run to prove that it works for all of these different use cases.
Okay, perfect. Please talk more about your technology IP. When did you file for the patent?
I filed for the patent in July of last year. And the reason I say it'll be approved, because of my age, they fast-tracked the patent, so I should get an approval within a month.
Okay. How much funding will you require after the 1.5 million and what will it be used for?
Ideally, I would like to have enough money to do one or two other pilots. So I'm asking maybe another 1.5 or another 2 million to do a pilot event on two other areas. We mentioned wildfire, law enforcement use of force, those kinds of things. Or maybe even coordinating with a private organization to, like ExxonMobil or something, to recreate an event like the catastrophe of the offshore production platform. But ideally, once we get the pilot done, we'll have clients immediately. So my hope is that we won't need that much more investment to actually get traction and revenue. I hope to have revenue immediately after the pilot's done. That is the school safety pilot. But the other investments would basically fund another pilot to accelerate revenue development in other areas with other clients.
Okay. What are your investment terms?
Well, I have a safe in place. My attorney is Shulman Rogers next, with a $6 million cap. I'm also willing to do a price round and maybe offer up to 12% equity in the company, either preferred or common stock. It depends on what the investor wants. Just so you know, my cap table is such that I currently own about 80% of the company, having given equity to various co-founders and some team members. So I'm willing to give up to 12% equity for an initial investment.
Okay. What is your business model?
Well, the business model is, and Izzy, you can jump in on this too.
Yeah, so the business model is, we plan on making money mostly through subscription services, and also through sales of the equipment. So the subscription services, the purpose of that and sort of the idea behind that is that what you're going to be able to do essentially is you're going to be able to create your own account and run as many simulations as you want, as many, different matrix simulations as you want, store all that data, and then go back to it and refer to it and keep on building on that and building on it. So it's going to be a subscription service, probably small, medium, and large contracts. And then the sale of the equipment in order to run the simulations as well.
Okay, great. Are you taking salary right now? Your breakdown of the 1.5 million shows 5% for marketing and BD.
Well, no one's on salary right now. Everyone, Izzy has equity in the company along with my other co-founder, Dean Sawicki. I'm not on salary either. I'm basically working gratis to build the business up. But I expect once the pilot event is funded, we'll have employees actually with salaries going forward. But right now, I have multiple subcontractors on the team. So most of my team right now is 1099s, but that will transition to W-2 employees through the execute of the pilot and revenue coming after the pilot.
Okay. What is the school safety market in Texas?
The school safety market in Texas is about $2 billion. House Bill 3, which came out a year or so after Uvalde, allocated over $1 billion for school safety in the next year or so. There's also an untapped market for school safety insurance. I met with the director of the Texas Association School Board Risk Fund, and they were very interested in having this capability to determine risk for schools they're insuring against active shooters. They don't have anything like that right now. It's a new product. And by the way, similar to a product that AIG has right now. AIG has a product called Crisis Solutions. And that product provides insurance against kidnapping, terrorist events, active shooters, that kind of thing. And they have a contract with a company called Crisis 24 to do surveys and tabletop exercises. But frankly, nothing like what we're talking about, recreating these crisis events realistically to find out how to mitigate it. So the market in Texas is quite large, and we're shaping the market in Texas by our interaction with the University of Texas, the school districts, and so on. So there's a large market there, but there's also a $3 billion school safety market nationwide. So once again, I'm not saying that Texas is our only market, but as a pre-revenue startup, you have to start somewhere. You can't boil the ocean. So we're starting with Texas, school safety, and moving on from there.
Okay, great. Do you have potential customers?
Yes, we have the potential customers right now, and I have a company called Mo Casey. It's my advocacy firm out in Texas. They're basically helping me shape the customer base. So their customers would be the Texas Education Agency, the Texas School Safety Center, Texas individual school districts, and the Texas Associated School Boards Risk Fund. They are the potential customers. So they're going to be participating in the pilot. But the idea is once they see the value of the pilot, they become customers soon thereafter. I just had a phone call before this meeting from the director of all the UT system police forces in Austin. And there are about 8 campuses throughout the state with millions of students. And they're interested in not only hosting the pilot, but being our first primary customer for the entire University of Texas system, which is quite large, as you may know.
Okay, wonderful. Is IMEROPEX a Delaware C corporation?
Yes, it is. We started out in January 2023 as a Virginia C corporation. We converted to a Delaware C corporation in March of this year.
Okay. How much traction are you having in Texas actual commitments?
Well, I got a letter of intent from the University of Texas Medical Branch. I'm negotiating a letter of intent from the Texas School District Police Chiefs Association, as well as the University of Texas itself. In addition to that, we had a dinner for about 10 different police chiefs during that conference in Dallas. And one of the larger school districts, police chiefs for the Humboldt Independent School District, has offered to host a pilot to showcase the capability throughout the state. So I see our customer base starting with the school districts and moving out to University of Texas and moving out to other themes in other states. But I see those being our first initial customers.
Okay, great. It looks like that one was the last of our questions. If anyone has any other questions, please write them in the chat. It looks like we did just get one more, so I'll ask this last question, and then if anyone has any others before we end, we can keep those going in the chat. What validation have you received or you intend to obtain that your product or service has significant value? In this regard, what is the valuation of your competitors?
Well, the validation is through the pilot. The whole idea behind it is we do the pilot, pressure test not only the concept, but the technology. And so by doing the pilot event on school safety, we will be showcasing the capability and validating at the same time. So what I see happening is that customers will come on board to see what we're doing. Or the customers will observe, potential customers will observe the event and then be our first customers after the pilot's over. So the pilot event is a validation event. Once again, this is not built on a napkin. I ran the CEMEX program for 20 years with a similar approach, but I left there to build something better. So I know this approach has value, but the way it was being done at the research center where I worked would not scale. We did 75 simulation experiments, but they took months to plan. I think we have a team together that can turn this around and develop a service where we set up an environment that allows clients to do multiple scenarios per year through a subscription service, which is how this thing is going to be marketable. And the other thing about what we're doing is a full diverse reality unit. As I mentioned, multiple companies are selling components, but not many, if any, are selling the integrated versions. So we'll pressure test that as well and validate its efficacy technically and operationally. So we're going to validate the data approach that ISI has. We're going to validate how we develop the scenarios and how it will scale in the marketplace. And we'll also validate the full diverse reality units. So the validation and development and marketing will happen simultaneously as we conduct the pilot.
Okay. We did get a couple more questions. What is the expected time to run a POC?
A POC?
Proof of
Yes.
concept.
Oh, proof of
Like a
concept.
Like a pilot.
Okay. 6 months.
Okay, great. And then we got another question. Have you obtained targeted use cases or benchmarks to substantiate the value you perceive?
Well, the use cases we've talked about, I've talked to NIST about wildfire mitigation, and we have a general plan on how to work on the wildfire scenario, but we have more discussion with law enforcement officers and school districts in Texas. And once again, they immediately see the value of this. An example, the police chief for all the UT system, the director of all the UT police chiefs. I talked to him today, and in earlier conversations, he said, Jim, this is something we really need now because of the civil disturbances going on in the university due to the Hamas situation. He was having to deal with those problems as well. And he said, what you're proposing could give us a way to prepare for these kind of events so we can tap them down without causing injuries or fatalities. The idea, this gives you the ability to handle various physical security scenarios and mitigate a crisis while minimizing injury. So law enforcement people see this as a valuable alternative. But once again, we're talking about a capability that's somewhat unique. Everyone has brothers doing VR for training. You can find that out very quickly. But discussions with a variety of organizations indicated to me there's value here. And once again, it's based on my experience of running the CEMEX program for all those years.
I think the other important
great.
thing here, just beyond, yes, this isn't training, but what we're building here is also going to be this bank of data, right? So right now we've got reports from a few different types of crisis scenarios that have been broken down after the fact. So we don't know how accurate they really are. And we've tried to pull some data from there. But what this is going to provide for us is a lot of data from a lot of different schools or a lot of different type crisis scenarios. All of that can be compiled to make national recommendations. It doesn't necessarily just have to be a certain school or a certain state or a certain event. So one of the big, more global benefits of this is just the amount of data that we're going to be able to compile and be able to make some informed decisions off of, especially when it comes to things like new technologies that have never been tried before or new suggestions that have never even been thought of before. This is an opportunity to stress test all of those and to get a ton of information from a lot of different scenarios in a lot of different schools in a lot of different places. So all of that will come with time, and all of that will, speaks to the validation of all of it. But there's nothing like this that's ever really been conceived of before, or ever really been possible until this point.
Sorry, I was muted. Great. It looks like we are done with our questions. Jim and Izzy, we want to thank you for being on today. I want to remind all of our attendees that you will get this recording of this meeting so that you can watch the presentation back if you missed any of it or you want to rewatch it. We have Jim and Izzy's contact information on the slide right now if you'd like to take a picture or write it down. And you can reach out to them to schedule another meeting to go over questions and any other topics you might want to cover. But Jim and Izzy, thank you so much for being here today. And with that, we can end the meeting.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.